Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for asking me to appear before the Commission this morning. As the Chairman has said, I'll try to abide by the 5-minute limitation. I have prepared written testimony, but this morning what I would like to do is briefly highlight 3 points that I made in my written testimony and then expand a bit with respect to one of the points. The subject of this morning's panel is intelligence collection. Intelligence collection is, however, as I point out in my written testimony, only the first step that we need to be concerned about in combating terrorism. Once you collect information, Mr. Chairman, you need to share it and disseminate it. Those are very important steps that we need to take. Now, even before the horrific events of September 11, I witnessed firsthand, as the Deputy Attorney General, some of the problems that we in the department had with sharing information, even within the department, sharing information with intelligence officials on one hand of the FBI and with our prosecutors on the other hand in the criminal division and in at least the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office. And these problems caused me on August the 6th of 2001 to write a memo to the head of the FBI, to the head of the criminal division, and the head of our Office of Intelligence and Policy Review, OIPR. And I reminded these gentlemen of the need for the FBI intelligence officials to notify the department's prosecutors as soon as possible of the existence of the possibility of federal criminal law violations during the course of an intelligence or counterterrorism investigation. And Mr. Chairman, we still had problems with that issue up to the horrific events of 9/11. Now, with the help of Congress, we in this country have made great strides toward getting more tools and resources in our efforts to combat terrorism. Many of the new resources or tools are embodied in laws, especially, as the Chairman mentioned, the Patriot Act. I'd like to just mention one provision of the Patriot Act this morning, highlight one provision that I think is extremely important, and that is Section 218. Section 218 of the Patriot Act has allowed the FBI and the Department of Justice prosecutors to expand the nature of the investigation of terrorist activity, especially as it relates to electronic surveillance activities and search activities. As you know, Section 218 provides that FISA investigations under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, can be utilized when foreign intelligence is a significant purpose of the investigation as opposed to the old primary purpose of the investigation. This is a very important distinction, and this is a very important provision. I would like to point out to the Commission this morning that Section 218 of the Patriot Act, as well as 15 other provisions of the Patriot Act, will sunset, cease to be in effect as of December, I believe, 31, 2005. December 2005 at least. We cannot afford to let these important provisions of the Patriot Act sunset without, I think, further reasonable, dispassionate, and informed discussion as a country as to how important these provisions are to our anti-terrorism efforts. I mentioned in my written testimony 3 ideas that I believe that we can focus on that can help us in our fight against terrorism, but this morning, briefly, I would like to focus and highlight one of them. We need to clarify the scope of some of the court opinions as it relates to the statute dealing with the material support of terrorism. This statute has been an invaluable tool in our war against terrorism, and it works. Let me quote to you, members of the Commission, a conversation that was unsealed in court recently that was between Mr. Jeffrey Battle, an individual in Portland, Oregon, who was accused of participating in terrorist activity, and an FBI informant. And Mr. Battle explained why his terrorism activities were not working as well as he thought he could be. And let me quote to you what he said. Because we don't have support. Everybody's scared to give up money to help us. You know what I'm saying? Because that law that Bush wrote about, you know, supporting terrorism, whatever the whole thing, everybody's scared. He made a law that says, for instance, if I left out of the country and I fought right, but I wasn't able to afford a ticket, but you bought my plane ticket, you gave me the money to do it, by me going and me fighting and doing what they can, by this new law, they can come and take you and put you in jail. So the terrorists are getting the message. This is a very important statute. It needs to be clarified. Representative Mark Green of Wisconsin has introduced legislation to do this, and I would hope that the commission would review this and study it and support that proposed legislation. I hope I've hope I've had fidelity to my promise to stick to 5 minutes. And after the professor's testimony, I would be pleased to try to answer any questions that the members of the commission might have.